Welcome back to the Crave Show. You're here with Chris, JRuss, and we have Keith George with us today. How you guys doing?
Good, great.
Doing well.
Nice. Thanks for being here, Keith. It's good to have you on, man. JRuss, how's everything going in your world?
It's going really well. We chatted a little bit before starting the show, but Steph and I are doing a bus conversion with an RTD bus from Denver, and I have found myself with a little bit extra time lately, and I have had a chance to work on it. And today was it's an interesting process because it was a lot of deconstruction actually to take everything out. And right now I just started yesterday and today framing up the new interior walls and thinking about the next couple of days doing the plumbing and electric and starting to install like appliances and stuff. So after months of, not months, I guess, but a month maybe of deconstruction, it's nice to see some things go in.
Nice.
So
it was
a really good day.
When do you think you'll be done? You think you can wrap it up this month?
I've only got a week before we head back to Chicago. And then we have a training camp, and then we have a quick weekend event, I think, and then I've got a week off. So I think Steph and I are coming back home to do more. I don't know if it'll finish. The intent is that we've been doing more and more work in Arizona, and after George from Firebird moved down to DeLand, we lost our place to stay that was free for years. So we're looking at maybe buying a couple acres of land and just parking the bus and setting up some solar and doing an off-grid thing when we're down there. It actually, I mean, not Eloy. Man, I have a tough time in Eloy, but the desert, it's not that bad in the winter. In the summer, it's really brutal. But man, we're just that's where the work is, and so we like the work. We like the guys we work with. It's fun. It's skydiving. It's a meaningful application of our otherwise useless skydiving skills. And so we're going to keep doing it as long as they're hiring us. So the bus is somewhere we can take the dog, take all our crap, and kind of be on our own.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, we'll see.
So Keith, where are you? You're in Chicago. Where are you right now?
I'm in Wisconsin. So
you're in Wisconsin.
We're about 50 miles north of Chicago.
Okay, cool. So, man, thanks for being here. I'm glad you joined us.
Oh, thanks for
this evening, man. So, JRuss, you wanna give any kind of special introduction to our friend Keith here?
I mean, just to start with, the easy one. Keith owns a drop zone I'm gonna hopefully pronounce this correctly, Sturtevant, Wisconsin. That is Skydive Midwest. And I would say, are you guys a medium-sized drop zone in your estimation, Keith?
I would say medium.
Yeah. Sometimes tipping towards large with some of the events that they do. And it's a super nice place. I first went to that drop zone maybe, I don't know, 15 years ago to visit a friend that had worked in Colorado with me and was working for Keith. And I think, was that before you bought it, Keith, or right when you bought it?
It was the year that I bought it. I think it was 2008 or 2009.
Yeah. And so Keith's a very good VFS flyer, and we've gotten to be kind of buddies over the years with flying together a lot, and couple different iterations of both of our teams slugging it out with each other when we go to competitions. And I've had a chance to stay with Keith a few times when I'm over at his drop zone, and just been just seemed like a nice guest to have on. But Keith has a whole introduction of his own that needs to go well above and beyond my introduction. So without further ado, Keith, tell us about yourself.
You want me to know just about me in general, or my skydiving life, or all
I mean, I think it's pretty open forum. I think people might like to hear sort of the pathway that your life has taken and brought you to skydiving. And then, yeah, but I mean, I'm guessing what people might like. I don't know.
I'm originally from New York. I grew up in a suburb of New York City. Yonkers was the name of the town that I grew up in. It's just west of the city, just north of New Jersey. Joined the Marine Corps at a high school. I was in an anti-terrorism team in the Marine Corps. I got out of the Marine Corps in 1994, so back in the dark ages. And I moved to Chicago. I became a cop in Illinois. I worked undercover narcotics and gang enforcement for 11 years. In 2008, I went to work as a contractor for the government in Iraq, and I worked in Iraq from 2005 to 2008. When I came back from Baghdad, I bought Skydive Midwest. I started skydiving when my oldest son was not born yet. My ex-wife was pregnant with her in 1997. And I was a cop, so I didn't make a ton of money. So I became a tandem instructor as soon as I had enough jumps to become a tandem instructor, so I could afford to skydive. So I used to work on Saturdays and fun jump on Sundays. So I would spend all the money that I made as a tandem instructor. And then I guess it was 20. What year was the Paris Nationals?
Well, there was one in 2005, but that might not be the one you're talking about.
So the last Paris Nationals was the first year that I was on the team. Man, 17? No, that's
6.
I don't know what it was. It was 7 years ago.
Okay.
7-8 years ago, because that was chemtrails was the team for 7 years, and Paris was our first nationals, and it was well into the second decade of my skydiving career, and it was the first time I'd ever been involved in competition skydiving, and I thought, holy shit, I've missed the best part of skydiving for over for almost 2 decades. Why didn't I do this sooner? It just added such a different dimension to the sport. I tell everybody that every young skydiver I can, get into competition. It's going to make you such a better skydiver. It just opens such a different avenue to what we do. And not only just like I've been involved in competitions in different things prior to skydiving, and the camaraderie and the way the teams, even the teams that are competing against each other, the way they're so supportive of each other, is just something that I thought was pretty unique to skydiving, and not just in VFS and in FS and MFS and all of the disciplines. And in a nutshell, that's it. I'm also a pilot. I spend a lot of time in Arizona also doing contracts.
Keith, you're married.
And I'm married. Yeah, my wife Megan, skydiver who is an FS skydiver. Have 2 kids that are both skydivers. One of them has a couple medals in VFS, and the other one has a couple medals in canopy piloting. Yeah, I'm married.
So what I'm interested, well, I got a lot of questions. First of all, okay, when you said when you became a police officer, you were part of a what kind of team? Something, you said something.
I was part of a task force, a state police task force. So it was run by the Illinois State Police that did undercover narcotics and gang investigations. And that was, I was based out of Lake, Illinois. And we did gang and drug investigations.
Okay, we might need to have an episode, a side quest episode dedicated to just hearing some stories from Keith about his police days. I bet you got some crazy stories, huh?
I've got some good stories.
Yeah, man. So what made you want to get into competition? Why? I mean, you said you basically skydived for over 10 years before you started competing, right? Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, almost 20 years before I started competing. And honestly, what made me want to start competing was my wife. My wife had been on a competitive FS team, and her team next had won a gold medal intermediate and then a gold medal in advanced 2 year consecutive years. And I was kind of like the team mom. I would go to nationals and just do whatever they needed, like try to support them. And the first nationals we went to was in Eloy. And I was like, holy cow, like this is super cool. And it made me want to be around it more. I didn't know that I wanted to compete. I don't know, like I had seen all the work that Megan and her team had put in to get to the level that they were. And this is when they were in intermediate and advanced teams, so it wasn't like the open class teams that are doing a gazillion jumps a year and hours upon hours. It's an all time. But the environment was cool. And then the next year when they went, and the award ceremony and the way all the competitors, it made me want to do something. And then, my former teammate and JRuss's current teammate, Colin, just asked me if I wanted to be on a VFS team. And at the time, the tunnels in Chicago had just opened up, and everybody was doing a ton of tunnel time. And I was like, I don't really know if I want to do that much work. I don't want to memorize all the shapes and numbers and letters. And so Colin said, well, how about you do video? I was like, sure, that sounds a lot easier. Little did I know, I still had to memorize all that crap. But yeah, and that's how it started. So I started, and I did video for 2 or 3 seasons, and then I moved inside.
That's cool. So now you said also that you try to encourage new skydivers or any skydiver maybe to get into competition. You kind of touched on some, but what did it do for you? I mean, like, why do you encourage people to get into it? What's so good about it? I mean, you said a lot, but
the biggest thing you see is with young skydivers, like when they're going through AFF, they have a goal, right? And their goal is that A license. That's their goal. They're driven towards a goal. They get their A license, and then they're rudderless. They're just drifting around. They don't really know what they do. They tend to go on bad skydives. They tend to go on, borderline dangerous skydives with other people at their same skill level. And there's no real course, I think. And I think competition gives you that. You're skydiving with a goal, which I think makes your skydives better. And they're just as fun. And like doing a 4-way jump, whether it's an FS jump or a VFS jump or an MFS jump, like when you plan a skydive, you practice a skydive, and you successfully complete a skydive, there's a sense of accomplishment after each one of those jumps, or a sense of, oh man, I got to tidy that up, and you don't have someone with 300 jumps that can't take a dive either on their belly, feet, or head, because you're working towards, a skill to obtain something. I think and there's nothing wrong with fun jumps. So there's a ton of people that have never done a competition jump in their life, and they become great skydivers. But I think competition adds more to that and increases your skill so much faster than just meandering around the skydiving. Which I think everybody should at least give it a go and experience now.
Yeah. What are the most common excuses or reasons that people get when you say, hey, you should get into competition, or you talk about competition? Why do people usually say they don't want to do it?
I think there's a couple different reasons. I think they vary by discipline. I think with the belly flyers, they think it looks too hard. And I think they're like, we saw the first iteration of Next, when Next was a brand new team and doing intermediate and advanced level jumps. They spawned a ton. We had like 7 or 8 FS teams at our drop zone during that time, where they were kind of good but not so good. And then when Next was really good, when they had been open for several years, you kind of look at their video and say, well, that's too hard. I'm not going to do that. So I think a lot of people will look at Arizona Airspeed or SDC Core and see those videos and see how fast, how precise, and how easy they make it look. When if you do those jumps, none of those things are true. And they say it's an unattainable goal. Whereas if you have a team that's pretty okay, but not super stellar, it's like, oh man, I can do that, and then they can get after it. But I think a lot of the barrier entry for a lot of the FS people are like, man, it looks like too much work. We have to practice, go to the tunnel. It costs too much money. And in reality, there are the lower classes of competition where it doesn't require that big of an investment. I think you can be a pretty okay team and represent yourself pretty well by just practicing maybe 1 weekend a month, going to the tunnel if you can, for a couple hours, in a year, just to get those, basic skills built up. And I think some of it with VFS, I think a lot of, and I'm probably going to take some shit for this from some VFS folks, or from vertical folks, is a lot of free flyers are very image conscious, and I don't think they want to be judged. I don't think they want to go out and put up a 5-point skydive when everybody else in the open class at their skill level, their peer group, is putting up a 10 or a 15. I think that it's hard for some of the sky gods out there to actually be judged in scores and strikes and scores.
Yeah. I'm smiling because right as you said that, it was like a knife. Like you got me, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to be judged.
I mean, VFS is pulling, man. The first time you do VFS, you're like, you thought you could transition, you thought you could take a dock, and then you try to do a block and you can't.
Yeah.
So.
It does look hard. It does. And you kind of talked about it, because I was also wondering if cost, if that's a lot of people, what about, and both JRuss, you can talk to this too, but what about like the atmosphere, the competitive atmosphere between teams, and but even between disciplines or whatever? But what is that like when you go to a competition? What's that like? The atmosphere between teams?
I mean, I've never experienced anything other than support by the teams that we've been competing against or competing with. And when it comes down to it, for the last 4 years, there's only been 3 teams in VFS Open, or 3 professional teams, Chemtrails or in Anthem. And I think we're all friends. Like it's a small group. Everybody's supportive. Like nobody wants anybody to do bad. We all try to help each other out when we can. We just hope that we do better than the other guy, right? So everything's. This reminds me of the last nationals in Arizona. The night before the competition started, we all went over to Johnny's house for a cookout, like all 3 teams. And my wife came with me, and like one of the things she said, she's like, "I can't believe this, because this is something that you wouldn't really see in the FS world. Is like all the open class teams together for dinner the night before round 1 of nationals." So, which, I mean, it's pretty cool. Like, I think we all like each other.
Yeah, that does sound cool. That sounds really cool. JRuss, is that pretty much your same experience?
I mean, I was at that dinner, so very, very similar experience. As far as how I think the original question was, how's the environment?
Yeah, like the competitive environment.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how it is in the FS world, I guess, other than the small interactions that I have with those guys during competitions. But in the vertical world, I would totally agree with Keith. Like it's pretty supportive. I think that competitive teams generally, when I first started, which was quite a while ago, I feel like people kind of held their cards close to the chest, and if they came up with something new, they kept it to themselves, and they were hoping for that gotcha moment maybe at the actual competition. But I think there's been a much stronger environment now of like sharing knowledge and coming to the meet, not trying to withhold things, but just coming to the meet with who's the best flyers, and if we've all got sort of the same information at the same time, and let's just see who can do the best. But I totally agree with Keith that it's a really positive community, that I like the people in the community. And I think maybe it's because it's small, and Keith's right. There's 3 or 4 open teams every year, and maybe the whole discipline has 6 or 7 teams. And I mean, personally, and I think my teammates, we want people to succeed. It is so hard on its own that I want to help the other teams. And if that means that I lose, okay. But I certainly don't want to, I don't know, have antagonism with that really small group of people that's really stoked about the same discipline I'm stoked about. When I competed FS last year, and there were 20 open teams and 20 intermediate teams and 20 advanced teams and 15 beginner teams, and you kind of get lost. It's not that they're unfriendly to each other, but there's 70 teams or something, and when we're all sharing the plane, like the whole open class goes up in one plane load, they're just buddies of yours who are trying to be good at something.
That makes it sound fun.
Yeah.
And that's different than the image or the picture that I had in my mind. I just think about like high level competitive sports, because I mean, open class VFS, I've seen some of the videos. That is high level, absolutely high level. I mean, so it makes me, hearing you guys talk makes me think about like the X Games. You know, when you see these guys doing skateboard tricks or BMX or whatever, and somebody pulls off a trick that's just so awesome, and all the other competitors are like hugging him and high-fiving him and like so excited that it's like they're all the same group. It's like one of their own did something awesome, you know?
Yeah.
You can appreciate the skill it takes to do, those things that way, especially when you've been struggling to do those things that way. So when someone else does it, you appreciate the hard work that went into getting there.
Yeah.
Since you guys both joked around about my video game, which we all know that I love to play, when I play Dota, it's such a toxic environment. It's millions of people, and it's so strange to me because most of them are younger than me. I'm not the oldest guy playing, but probably close. But it's so strange to me that like the other VFS teams, those are my best friends in the world in terms of like the spirit of competition. They're passionate about what I'm passionate about. Their sacrifice, their training, their dedication, their heartfelt enthusiasm for my discipline validates my own feelings in the same way. And we all meet. I mean, without those guys, what are we doing? Like we're just the best hand holders in the world,
yeah.
So I mean, those guys are, in that sense, they are the people that I want to see at the competition. I want them to continue to be dedicated at the thing that I'm dedicated about,
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Keith, do you have are there any memories that really stand out from competing? Good or bad?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. I probably my worst memory ever of in 2019 at Paraclete. The competition was in the fall, but in April I decided to fly my parachute into the ground, and I broke my pelvis, my femur, my back, a bunch of internal injuries. And I shouldn't have been jumping. I shouldn't have come back. But my goal was to compete at nationals, and I did. But I didn't really have a lot of control of my fall rate, and my video was horrible. And I feel that I kind of cost our team probably the shot at because we had been, for the first couple of rounds, we were pretty close with Anthem. I think we had outscored them in 1 or 2 rounds, and they had outscored us for 1 or 2 rounds, but we were within a point or two of Anthem. And I just shit the bed, basically. I ended up with a video bust, and then we ended up with a 0 because I had a camera malfunction where we shouldn't have got out of the plane. We did. And I would say that is probably the absolute worst memory of nationals that I have, because I felt that my inability to fly really affected our team, and that sucked.
Yeah.
And my team was great about it. Like I tried to, we had an alternate at the time. Kyle Brady had been doing video for us, and he later became a member of our team. But about round 5 or 6, I tried to bow out, and they wouldn't let me, even though at that point the damage was done. But they kept me in there, and I finished the comp with the team, and that meant a lot to me too, though. But that was a tough one for me.
Yeah.
I don't like being bad at something.
Yeah.
And that sucked.
So, all right, what about a good memory?
Man, probably a gold medal in CSC in 2018.
18, I think.
2018. So that was our gold medal in advanced. And then we moved up and just got our ass handed to us in open. So, which happened. There's we got to go to Belgium for indoor nationals on the U.S. team for the world. Not nationals. The World Cup. That was super cool. We just went to Voss for the World Cup in there, and that was just amazing. Being able to be on the U.S. team to do that kind of stuff, to travel to those drop zones, like big international competitions, that just adds another layer on top of the national stuff, and another reason why you should experience all that sport has to offer you.
Yeah, that's cool.
So Keith, I want to, if we can, we can always come back to competition. I just wanted to switch gears a little bit, just because, as far as drop zone ownership goes, in my experience, you're hands-on. You're there every day. You're pulling the plane out. You're gearing up tandem students. You're sometimes doing your own training jumps. You're out in the landing area catching tandems. You're riding that Kawasaki mule around fixing stuff. I think are you in A&P also?
I am.
Yep. You fly the plane. You teach all the people that fly your planes. You sometimes fly military contracts. You're a busy dude. But I'm curious, since 2008, how do you feel about owning the drop zone, especially being so hands-on, and what do you like about it? What do you maybe not like, and that kind of stuff?
It's hard to like. I like it all. I like everything about skydiving. I like running the skydiving business. If you sit back and analyze it on maybe a cost loss perspective type thing, it doesn't make sense. If I worked for somebody else and put in all the hours I did, I'd be way better, way further ahead. Probably have a bigger house, nicer cars. But I like busy. I like doing lots of things, and I think it's rewarding. I think also my previous jobs, you really didn't make people smile, right? Like your job really wasn't to make people smile. Skydiving is like it's a happy place. You know, the skydivers are fun to be around. Everybody's having a good time. The tandem students, when they land from a tandem jump, like it's euphoric. I love that. That's probably my favorite part. And I think I've said this before. If there was only one skydive that I could do for the rest of my career, if I had to pick one, it would be tandems, because you get to introduce somebody else to skydiving, and every time you introduce someone to the sport, you get to share that excitement just a little bit. And if, as a tandem instructor, that you don't feel that, the tandem instructor, that's
That is cool. And you said you bought the drop zone in what year?
2008.
So we had, Anthony from SDC. We had him on, and I thought that it was good to hear from his perspective. I mean, obviously he's also very hands-on and intimately involved with every bit of the operation. If there was a safety issue that you feel is commonly neglected that you would love for people to not neglect anymore, is there one that stands out in your mind?
Man, there's several. I think
we got time.
You got time. It's canopy flight. For me, it's the flying predictable patterns and just not being done under canopy is probably my biggest thing. And we've had a canopy collision at our drop zone, which resulted in the fatality of one of my best friends. So it's one of those things that I think has I think the USPA's numbers kind of bear it out. It has the biggest potential to impact your safety in the sport. It's what's happening when you're flying your parachute around. Flying predictable patterns is probably one of the things you can do to avoid, especially like you've been on our drops in our landing area. It's not forgiving. It's narrow and long. So you have to fly patterns, fly what you're supposed to do. And the other thing is backtracking up jump, right? Exit, knowing where you are in the sky at deployment time.
Yeah.
So go into that just a little bit, Keith, just because some of our listeners are brand new skydivers, and so they I'm sure they know what you mean, but I think it would be beneficial and helpful to kind of unpack that just a little bit.
With the exit altitude and tracking up jump run, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, because you said backtracking up jump run, right?
So that reference was basically to this when you're tracking back up jump run. I probably might have used the wrong terminology there, but very especially younger skydivers, they have a tendency to maybe not be aware of jump run, or they lose track of what direction jump run was once they've exited the aircraft. or in their middle of their skydive, they lose, or they never knew what direction jump run was to begin with. So if they know that jump run is east, like in our case, if jump run's east, you're flying towards Lake Michigan. You can't miss it. It's a big, giant piece of water out there, right? So you should know that you shouldn't be tracking to or away from Lake Michigan. You don't want to put the big jump run. That's something that I think comes second nature to a lot of people with a lot of skydives, but younger jumpers, they're younger jumpers that are just learning to skydive, and they're skydiving. They're super excited about it, and they probably don't remember that the airplane was flying towards Lake Michigan when they got out of the airplane, and so they're going to fly towards Lake Michigan, and now they're tracking underneath the next group of people exiting the aircraft, which will create hazard at opening time.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about, and maybe this is something that some places talk about or do, teach or whatever, but, newer, younger jumpers, lots of times they're not, they're going to do like a two-way belly or something. I don't know. You got two young jumpers. They each got, 30, 35 jumps. They're going to do two-way belly. They're probably not walking their jump, right? I mean, because what are they going to do? They're going to exit the plane, try to stay close together, try to stay on level, and just maybe take a dock or two and not get too far apart, right? I mean, so they're probably not walking a jump because there's not really anything to walk. But I never thought about having them walk the jump for the purpose of break off and actually visualizing the direction of jump run and where are you going to track, and get them in the habit of walking a jump. Is that something that some places teach and talk about and actually have younger jumpers do? I've never thought about it.
We do talk about it, but the problem, I think, where you get in is that's the problem, is you end up with two jumpers, both of them with 35 to 40 skydives between them, including AFF, and that's probably one of the last things on their mind when they're getting ready for skydive. And it is something that I think would be one of those things that we could easily focus on more. And I know that when our load organizers and our coaches do those jumps, they do talk about those things. But I think it's definitely an experience issue.
So Keith, when you were talking, I just wrote a couple questions down. And it's kind of a bigger discussion. We've talked a lot about angle groups, movement groups on the show. We've had a couple people on who specialize in that kind of jump. I've done quite a few of those jumps through Summerfest and just other stuff. How, just from the drop zone perspective, how are you guys dealing with the angle groups that are at your drop zone? That's sort of a two-part question. Like, not only the people who are at your drop zone that who they are, but also visiting coaches. How are you guys dealing with that?
You have to be approved by our SNTA. It used to be you had to be approved by Garrett to do angles at our DZ. Be able to give do a walk, explain the angles, explain debrief an entire angle jump. And it's still simple. So you have to be approved by now Kazoo or Austin to do angle jumps at our drop zone, to lead angles at our drop zone. No more than two moving groups on the plane, first out, last out. And that's pretty much how we deal with it. We don't really allow folks that we don't know to do angles. If we had, Neil Kuhlman or Fly for Life coming out, obviously, they're going to lead their angles. They coach angles. We're going to allow them to lead angles and do angle groups. But if you just show up at our DZ and we don't know you, you're not going to lead an angle.
Yeah.
Too much movement.
But then, I guess on the other side of that, do you feel like, with respect to what you said about the tracking issues, that having qualified coaches running camps at your DZ is a potential mitigation for those things, that younger jumpers can sign up and learn some of the fundamentals about movement and jump run and all the basics that go with movement groups?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you can, add knowledge to a skydiver's toolbox about whatever part of the discipline it is, you're going to increase safety and mitigate some of those risks. You have to just be careful, because sometimes a little bit of knowledge is just as dangerous as not enough.
Yeah.
But we do. I mean, we have angle camps. We've got Neil coming out for an angle camp this year. I'm sure Garrett will run something at some point this year. So we do encourage people to learn it and to take these camps with folks that are experienced, that can teach them the safe way to do it.
I think like a lot of drop zones, you kind of, at least it's at Chicago and maybe the same at your place. Like you think, okay, well, they're doing tracking jumps and it's going to be okay. And people know how to track. And then you have a couple of close calls and you're like, man, all right, we sorry, but we got to get a handle on this. And, we've got people endangering other people's lives because they don't know exactly what they're doing. We just can't let everybody do it. It's got to be a little more structured.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. The angle flying sometimes is a black hole of our conversation, so I'm going to try and steer away from it. But I just want to talk, this could also be a black hole potentially, but Keith, you are an IBA tunnel instructor. And you worked actively, huh? Uncurrent. Yeah, me too. But you did work in the Chicago tunnels for a couple of years. You were at Rosemont, right?
Yes.
Yep. And although currently uncurrent, you still are technically an instructor. And so I just wanted to give you a second if you want to talk about your experiences in the tunnel or what you thought about being an instructor and how you look at that industry lately.
Pre-COVID, it was great. I loved it. I had a great time there. I worked there part-time. It was a chance for me to hang out in the wind tunnel with my friends. I mean, I originally started working there after I started on chemtrails because I thought it would force me to get better on my feet because, you're always in the tunnel on your feet, right?
Did it?
No, because I hate that's my feet now.
Okay.
I obviously, when COVID happened, I got laid off or shut down or whatever it was that they did with non-essential people. After COVID, I got fired. Well, I mean, they offered me a full-time position back when they knew I couldn't take a full-time position, so my employment was terminated. And I think it's since COVID, what's happened to at least the corporate tunnels has been very unfortunate to put it mildly. I guess they've made an environment basically where they've alienated probably 50% of their customers, and I don't know. I it's a shame to see what the tunnels have become, at least the corporate tunnels. I guess it's good for the franchise tunnels that are still running it and realizing that skydivers are a viable revenue source that actually can add benefit to their tunnel. Running camps. My drop zone used to have an agreement with Rosemont where our teams had a sponsored rate for tunnel time, and in exchange we ran events there. So we did VFS night, MFS night. My wife's team did FS night. They would do FS scrambles. Rosemont was a very busy, experienced flyer tunnel at that time. And I think their knee-jerk reaction to a couple injuries that were, it sucks when people get hurt, but it is part of our sport in skydiving and part of tunnel flying. There is risk involved. That's why we sign waivers. I think it was a little bit of a risk management knee-jerk overreaction to what happened, unfortunately it adversely impacted a lot of their customers. So hopefully the current crew that owns it will sell it again, and maybe the next crew will come in and be skydiver friendly again. We'll see.
Would you? If there was a change in the environment, or are there circumstances in the future where you could see yourself picking that industry back up in some capacity or other?
I mean, as a customer, I don't think I'd ever go back and work for them again. I think a lot of skydivers went to work at the wind tunnel to get good at flying. And one of the benefits of working there was free flight time and flying breaks, and all that stuff's gone now. From my understanding anyway, you don't get fly breaks. Instructors can't fly it over like 74% or something like that for, I'm sure it's saving them millions in power consumption, but yeah, it just it would have to they'd have to run it like a franchise tunnel in order for me to want to be part of one again. So
it's an interesting paradox in my mind that I know how useful the tunnel is, and I know how good it is for my flying and how much I have to be in there. And then coupled with the frustration I feel at the operation of a lot of tunnels.
It's like if you want to be competitive in competitive skydiving, it's kind of a necessary evil. You need to time in the tunnel. Like there's no there without it.
Keith, I was just thinking though that you've never been to our house, and now that the Colorado Springs tunnel is open, maybe we need to remedy that with your team coming out here and training with us.
We've been talking about that. So.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Let's talk about that more. So feelings about iFly. I wanted to ask, and I know that this a little bit just because we've been friends for a long time, but I'm wondering if the people who are going to listen to this later will wonder about your transition from kind of military-minded stuff into a drop zone, which, at least from my perspective, is a very long way from the military mind, and just kind of how you, I don't know, how your mind went about that transformation.
I mean, honestly, I think if we talk to some military folks in, the guys that I stay in contact that are actually skydivers, and myself, I don't know that the skydiving community is very different from some of the more tight military communities. It's actually, I think, very similar in a lot of ways. I mean, you do something where it's a high stress activity that you get a reward from, and you do it with a small group of people. And that small group of people, generally, we give each other a lot of shit and razz them a lot. And it is a lot like the camaraderie of being in a small unit in the military. And I think, that part of skydiving actually feels very similar to some of the military stuff. Now, obviously, there are some differences. We're not out there, carrying a gun going to war or anything. But I think it was, I think skydiving was, for me, when I came back from Iraq, an easier place to feel like you fit in than, anywhere else in a civilian world. Because it was, we're all doing this one thing that the rest of the world thinks is kind of retarded.
Yeah, that's interesting. As you said it, I was thinking about the group, the groups that we both work with, the military guys. There are a few guys who take it to the civilian side. It's not a ton, but I was thinking that maybe it might be an interesting thing as a like getting out of the military. That might be an interesting, I don't know, decompression kind of activity for guys who've been professional soldiers in the past to have a sense of camaraderie and community in this shared silliness. But yeah, that's interesting. There was a year that I worked in Sebastian long ago, 2006 maybe or 7, with some SF guys from the UK who were all transitioning out of being in Afghanistan or basically overseas and that kind of work, and they could either go scuba diving at the Red Sea or like climbing a mountain or skydiving, and those were their 3 like let's have a break before you go back to society kind of activities. It was nice to work with those guys. It's crazy to see guys that were at war kind of nervous about jumping out of an airplane. Like,
you're used to. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's amazing what can become your normal.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I have a question about drop zones and what can skydivers do, whether, maybe it's when I go to a new drop zone or just at my home DZ. How can I be a good skydiver for the drop zone? What can I do? Are there things that you see skydivers doing? They're like, man, I wish people wouldn't do that. That would make the drop zone run so much smoother, or that would help out. So you understand what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things like as a fun jumper. I think the biggest thing you can do, like for me, is I want you to be welcoming to newer fun jumpers or visiting jumpers. Like be the person that goes out and introduces yourself. Maybe you're not going to skydive with the guy, whatever, but make someone feel welcome.
Hmm.
There's a lot of times where I'll walk onto a job. Maybe a lot of times before I started competing, when I started traveling a lot and people knew me, where you would walk onto a drop zone, and if you didn't know 4 or 5 people there, people would just ignore you. And that's off-putting. Like one of the things that we've always tried to do at Midwest is be very welcoming. And that's a lot of people will say that, make those comments that we have a small club-like feel with the big airplane because we have an auto. And I think that comes. I can't make that environment at my drop zone. That is our group of jumpers that is welcoming to outside people. And hey, my name is Keith. Where are you from? Where do you normally jump at? How many jumps do you have? Make somebody feel welcome instead of make them feel awkward by walking around the packing mat for 45 minutes, like not knowing where they should go. And as a fun jumper, I think that would be the number one thing. Obviously be a safe skydiver. Don't be a yahoo. But as far as be welcoming, be maybe a mentor or just somebody's first handshake, at the DZ. As instructors, don't be a grouch. This is my pet peeve with hand instructors. How can you be grouchy doing this job? This is the coolest job to have in the world. Maybe it doesn't pay that great, but it's still pretty good. You get paid to bring people on their first skydives.
Yeah.
So
that's good. Thank you. Those are both very, very helpful.
But I gotta say, your drop zone does feel like a club with big airplanes. But I disagree with the part where you said that you can't make it that way, because I think it starts at the top down, and I think you are out there talking to new jumpers when I see you around the drop zone, and you are talking to people about landing patterns. And one of the things that I thought of while you were talking is that you guys have a great culture there of being in the loading area ready to load at the 5-minute call. I mean, sometimes there's teams that are training there that are turning and they're running to make the plane, but from the tandem instructors and the videographers, at least from the stuff that I've seen, that's I think a wonderfully safe environmental practice, to be there early, to talk about what you're doing, to get exit order right before the plane pulls up. And that's another thing that, to be honest, I think starts at the top and works its way down. So I'm not sure I agree with you on how that all came to transpire.
Yeah.
But it's definitely good aspects of the drop zone. And for a visiting jumper, like I don't know if I'm technically a visiting jumper. I have jumped there, but most of the time I'm on the ground, and so I'm just watching operations a lot of times when I'm not playing Dota in between your loads. But yeah, there's some really nice things that have been implemented at that place. It's a very safe place to be.
So Keith, real quick, while JRuss is looking over more questions. I used to jump a lot at Skydive Lone Star here in Texas. And I've jumped out of one of your planes multiple times because I guess we rented it from you or borrowed it or what, right? I mean, but didn't your plane come down? Not borrow, you know what I'm saying? Do what?
I'm going to guess that was after we had sold it and Joe Johnson was the owner.
Correct.
Yeah. So he had one of my King Airs for a while.
Yeah. But I thought I remembered.
I mean, our otter,
an otter or something coming down one time.
It would have come down the first couple years, but that relationship went sideways pretty rapidly.
I think I remember jumping out of the otter a few times, and then you said Kazoo is still working with you, right?
Kazoo does, yep.
Yeah, he came down a few times. He probably will not remember me, but tell him I said hi. I remember him. He does have that attitude, what you're talking about, friendliness and welcoming, and highly skilled, fantastic skydiver, but just such a nice, down to earth guy. And I bet he won't remember me, but I remember him because he was just so kind and friendly.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he's our primary SNTA, and he is very much responsible for a lot of the safety culture at the drop zone. He doesn't really let too much slide. We all joke around with him quite a bit about lots of different stuff, but he really does make the environment a nice place to be. And he's also got those big knife hands. So if you walk through in the landing, you're like, you did something wrong.
He makes a killer barbecue sauce too.
Yeah, he does.
Does he really?
Yeah.
So this happens every week with
tell him
Chris's
hello
camera.
For me.
So Keith, we normally go about an hour. There's no time limit. We can talk as long as we want. But I told Steph that I would get you to talk about your animal menagerie that you have going on at your place. And so just to start, rattle off, what do you got in your backyard?
We've got 7 emus. Actually, we have 5 now because we had 2 escape right before this podcast started.
Just for clarity, that's emus. Those are big ass birds like an ostrich.
Wait, how many do you have?
7.
I mean, they're not big as an ostrich. They're about half this. Like ostriches get to be the big ones get to be 10 foot tall. Our emus.
Okay, but for everybody out there, if you see these freaking emus, you're going to go back to thinking about Jurassic Park and that little 3-toed hooky thing that just eviscerated people from the Velociraptor. That's what he's got in his backyard.
You have some wounds from their Velociraptor feet also.
Don't they make that like drum beat sound? That
That's the females. The females make that sound. The
okay.
males actually kind of grunt. They sound a little bit like a pig.
Okay.
But
Keith has multiple times tried to give Steph emus, and I've had to talk her off a cliff of, no, honey, we are not home enough to have emus.
Well, Keith, isn't the emu meat? Isn't it good?
These are emu eggs.
Oh wow!
And they're fertilized emu eggs, and we can incubate them. So I can send Steph emu.
Yeah. There you go. Don't
She's
ask,
not listening
just send
to this
her one.
cast.
Just send it.
Yeah. Oh God. I mean, look at those eggs. That's like something
can you
out
eat
of
the eggs.
Yeah, these are emu eggs.
If you got a few people over.
But can you eat them?
Oh yeah, they taste like chicken eggs.
Really?
They're just,
that's awesome.
I think a chicken egg weighs about 26 grams, and those weigh about 450.
That's so cool. Is the meat good? Isn't emu meat good?
It's like it's a lean red meat. I'm not eating any of our birds.
Okay.
They have names. Once they get their names, they're never going to get eaten.
I just want to point out that those eggs bear a striking resemblance to the eggs they showed in Game of Thrones that were dragons. I'm just saying.
All right. So what other animals do you have?
Well, this is the one most likely to get eaten. If one was ever up for getting eaten, is Tank, who's our goat. And he's pretty much, he might be an Al Qaeda plant. He's a terrorist. And we have 2 horses and a dog. We used to have chickens, but the coyotes ate them all. And I do still have 2 ducks. Pond out back. So, but that's
the coyotes got your chickens, huh?
Man, they got all of them in one day. We lost like 20 birds one day.
Man.
So we haven't restocked the chickens yet because Megan said she was tired of feeding the coyotes. So, but the coyotes are afraid of the emus.
I'm afraid of the emus.
They're lovely animals.
Yeah. So just as a recap, 7 emus, a goat, 2 horses. You guys are active riders.
Yeah.
Your dog is Scout.
Scout dog. Yep.
Yeah. And 2 ducks. And Scout's been this whole podcast bringing up an excellent illustration of who trains whom, because I think I've seen you throwing him treats the whole cast to try and get him to shut up.
That's right.
And
that's over there whimpering.
He's just over there, man. If I keep making this noise, I keep getting treats. He's talking to people.
Treats,
I know I've got him on the hook.
Yeah, that's fairly accurate.
Do you technically call the mosquitoes at your house pets, or are they feral?
They're feral.
Okay.
I have 4 colonies of honeybees.
Oh yeah, talk about that a little bit, man. That's pretty freaking cool.
Oh no way! I've been wanting to do bees.
They're so neat. The biggest thing with the bees is leave them alone to do bee stuff. But yeah, there's actually the gazebo in front of our house. I actually turned that into a bee house this year.
Oh, nice.
So year before last, I actually lost. None of the hives survived the winter. So this year, I've got 4 new nuc or nucleus colonies that I just set up last week. So I've got all 4 of them inside a gazebo, sitting, looking out in different directions. And all 4 colonies seem to be doing pretty good. I got 3 different breeds this year, so we'll see which one does the best, and hopefully we'll get about a gazillion gallons of honey this year. And
Man, for all those people out there who have not had like not processed honey, but just raw honey,
it's no different.
man, it's so different and it's so good. Keith gave me a little bit, like a spoonful when I was there, I don't know, last year, 2 years ago. It's so good. Yeah, and if ever you're at Skydive Midwest and you get an invite over to Keith's house, you'll be one of about 13 vagabonds who are there. And you walk in and it is the garage area is like 27 other good mechanics tool chests vomited into the garage, and there's the menagerie of Keith's mind and rebuilding everything. And then you see this like beautiful vintage Bronco pull out that he finally completed, but you go in there and it's like, I don't know how any work can get done. But if you ever get there, you get to feed grapes to the emus and you get to have raw honey, both of which are worth the price of admission, which is probably $0.
That truck is actually it's Megan's, and she'll get upset if JRuss is mine.
Oh, sorry.
She'll have to. JRuss is going to have to deal with Meg.
Sorry, Meg.
69 International Scout that we
man,
took almost 10 years to complete, but it's done now. It's pretty awesome.
That's cool.
We actually did a 5.3 swap to it, the LS motor in it. So.
You put a Corvette engine in it?
No, we put a 5.3 LS motor out of a truck. So, but it's got a newer Chevy engine in it instead of the
okay. I thought the LS1, isn't that what's in the vet or used to be?
That is, yeah. The LS series is a whole series of engines.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So this
that's cool.
Is out of a 1500 pickup truck.
That's cool. Well, my oldest son, his middle name is Scout, and you're gonna think I'm an idiot, but his middle name is Scout because I just think those international scouts are so awesome. I've wanted one forever. Yeah, never owned one. And
we saw one, and Megan's like, I don't know what truck that is, but I want it. International Scout. And then I screwed up. Like, if you're gonna buy an International Scout and build one, make sure you buy a Scout 2, because they made the Scout 2 from like the early 70s up until the 80s. If you buy a Scout 800, they only made it for like 3 or 4 years.
Oh, you can't find parts and stuff?
And we bought a Scout 800. So I spent a lot of years and a lot of money trying to find new old stock parts to fix the thing up. And it's a gorgeous truck now, and I'm glad we did it. But wow, it was a project.
Yeah, they're cool, man. They're really cool.
So Keith, just kind of probably wrapping up, next few minutes. What are some of the events that you guys are having at your drop zone this year?
The big event we're having this year, we have 2 of them happening the same weekend. Gorka and Doug Barron are organizing a Wisconsin state record. It's going to be, I believe, 110 way. So of airplanes, which is going to be a zoo. And that same weekend, Matt Fry and Colin Conway are organizing the Wisconsin head down state record, which will be using Matt's organizing of his ribs and spines design. It'll kind of be a larger scale test of that theory to see how that works out, maybe in the world record. So that's our big. Those are our 2 big events this year, happening the same weekend in August. And yeah, it's gonna be great. Can't wait.
Very cool.
I'm there for that weekend. It's going to be busy, and I'm going to be very happy to not be an organizer. At least I don't think I'm an organizer right now. Cool.
You can't help but be an organizer.
That's true. It's hard. I always want to help. And so just kind of normal operations the rest of the year, and you've got
we've got a couple like ankle camps and stuff. That's the big ones.
And you said that Next is not training this year as an FS team. Do you guys have an FS team that's going to start training there?
As of right now, I don't believe we do have a current FS team. I think that there's been some talk of some people putting one together, but the hardest part of being on a team is finding 5 people that want to be on a team and that like each other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so. I don't really know. There's definitely not going to be a next this year.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there will be a next or not. You know, I don't know, maybe Megan and Lauren will get the old crew back together.
Well, I'm definitely crossing my fingers that you're able to. Keith Chemtrails finished last year as a team, and Keith's been talking about rebuilding, and not to put you on the spot, but hoping that happens, and we'll see another really, really high quality team coming out of your drop zone.
I'm hoping so also.
Yeah.
The potential lineup that we have, I think, might be pretty good. So
cool.
It'll be fun. We probably won't be good for the first year or two, but it'll be fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's rebuilding stuff, man. You know it, and everybody who has to go through that process understands. It's difficult, and you take a few steps back, and hopefully you get those steps back somewhere in the future.
Yeah, I think the hardest part is you always are probably going to compare it to what you had, and you can't. You got to kind of look at it as it's a new adventure. So.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Well, Keith, I think we're probably going to wrap up here in a second, but I don't know if you how familiar you are with Crave and what we've been doing, but you know when you said earlier about information and increasing people's knowledge and information is a good thing and hopefully makes people safer. Obviously, the right information but with Crave, that's what we're trying to do is share information across the world. I mean, for all skydivers. And so we have these different video courses. I don't know if you've had a chance to check out the website or if JRuss shared with you, but
yep.
We have a course on movement, on canopy piloting, on wingsuiting, camera flying, a bunch of different disciplines. JRuss and Steph's course on vertical flying. We're about to release a course from Pete Allen. So, I would really love it, appreciate if you have a chance to check out the website, and I'd be more than happy to just give you a free subscription so you can actually see the content. And if you think it's good, if you think the courses are beneficial, please share it with your people.
Absolutely.
And if you think it's crap, you call me and tell me why it's crap so I can make it better.
It's the JRuss and Steph course. That's it. That one's crap. Everything else.
Yeah, JRuss's course is terrible. I mean, I think they're fantastic. We've had a lot of really positive feedback from skydivers all over the world, and that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to make knowledge from good knowledge, safe knowledge, trustworthy knowledge from some of the best skydivers in the world. We're trying to make it available to everybody. So we would love it if you would share that with your people once you have a chance to look through it and see if you can endorse it or not.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Keith, I'll be in touch about VFS stuff.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
And then, hey, JRuss, before we go, I just wanted to throw this out there for our listeners. I'm looking at this summer and kind of the schedule and calendar for Crave, and I'd really like. I'm trying to see if I can work it out to go visit some different drop zones around. Well, I don't know wherever. I'm looking at a lot of different places. So if you are listening and you would like for me to come visit your drop zone, my goal, my hope is to go visit, spend a day or two jumping. If people want me to organize or just jump and have fun, I would love to do that. And then also maybe buy everybody one day, buy a bunch of pizza and beer and sit around and have fun and maybe even dig into a little bit of the content, the Crave courses, and let people get a firsthand feel for what it is, and just an opportunity for me to meet people and network and make friends and share Crave with more people. So if you are listening and you would like for me to come visit your drop zone, please reach out to me. Send me a message on Instagram or Facebook. And I would love to try to make that work out. I can't promise that I'll get to make it everywhere, but I would really like to do that. And of course, an invitation is way better than just showing up cold turkey. So let me know if that's something you think would be a benefit to your drop zone. I'd like to try to make that happen.
Cool.
All right. Well, it's that time. You've done it again.
What a well spent
You
hour.
have wasted another. Oh, right there, cut me off. You
If
wasted
there-
another perfectly good
Chris,
hour listening to the Crave Show.
If there's anything real about cosmic justice, that it just happened. We did not waste an hour. We had a great hour chatting with my boy Keith.
We did have a good hour. Keith,
Yeah.
sorry my camera cut out again, but thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, you guys had a great time.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
see, not so bad.
It didn't feel too awkward until
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad I could bring it full circle.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you guys. Thanks for being with us. JRuss, thank you, man. Y'all have a great week.
You bet. I'll see you guys.